the more you know about your ICP, the better you can communicate with them. That's basically the point.
When that communication is done as a group, the ability for that to move to the top and then get rid of a lot of that negative stuff that's out there is going to be much faster and much better than if every resort has their own agenda.
Increasingly, AI tools are shaping what shows up in many cases, often using outdated or incomplete stories. So this session looks at how to get ahead using AI alongside earned and owned channels in your marketing to build more accurate and forward-looking narratives heading into next season. So without further ado, we're joined by Chris and Daniel of Boulder SEO Marketing. Their work focuses on organizations showing up in search and AI-driven platforms and how to shape those results in a coordinated and practical way. Today, they'll walk through what's happening, what to say, and how to do it to scale across teams and channels. Chris and Daniel, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for having us. We're going to try to make the most of this very short time together. We can talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but I think you'll walk away with really valuable, actionable information. And then we're also available if you have any questions after the session. Yes, we're those people that make everybody stand up, please. So we just had a big lunch, did an exercise. Just to gauge the room real quick, please keep standing if the answer is yes, right? Who's using AI as part of their professional stuff that you do every day? If you use AI, please keep on standing. If you don't, sit down. Okay. If you're using Claude, Gemini, etc., who has set up a project or like who has set up a space within your AI that contains knowledge that you go back to on a regular basis? So if you do, please keep on standing. If you don't, please sit down and please be honest. Perfect. Okay, so if you're using a tool, this is wine. Who's using Claude? Okay, who's using Gemini? Who's using ChatGPT? Okay, so if you set up a project in Claude or Custom Gem or whatever, who has used skills in Claude or like a thing that does something very specific within your project? And it's okay if you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. Awesome. Who's using, of those standing, who is using a tool such as Open Claude or Claude Desktop to do stuff as you are working? Cool. Okay. Very good. Well, you're in the right session. Thank you so much. Okay. So what we're going to talk about, if you do a search for international AI SEO experts, you actually find my personal website at the very top in the traditional search results. And now Google, in 60 to 70% of all times, they slap on an AI generated, it's called an AI overview. They're the world champion in creating AI generated content. And they're very critical how we people use AI generated content. So this is what we're going to talk about, right? Using our methodology that we're going to talk about in this session, figured out how to show up at the very top in Google globally in an AI search for, really cool keyword. Am I the top international AI SEO expert? I don't think so, but I'm really good at SEO. And we developed a system that actually works. Then also a very important part of this session is how do we control the narrative, right? I used to be an Icon Plus subscriber forever, and I'll talk more about that on what happened. Many people, right? They went online and like, oh my God, worst season ever. It's Steamboat. There's no snow, blah, blah. So they go to platforms like Reddit. This is an incredible opportunity for us to join the conversation and to control the narrative. So that's what we're going to talk about. Who is in communications for one of the ski resorts here? Who's actually dealing with this stuff? Okay, very good. Excellent. So in this case, we developed a methodology called Micro SEO. I did a search and there was a Reddit thread. Somebody asked, what are Micro SEO strategies? It's a methodology that we developed, trademarked. What a softball, right? For me to go in there and say, hey, I'm the inventor, right? This is what it is. So I'm controlling the narrative and we have an excellent opportunity to do that, to combat the terrible content that's out there, because it's not going to go away. So that's what we're going to talk about in this session as well. Daniel, you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. So, you guys hear me all right? Yeah. So my name's Daniel. Before joining forces with Chris, I used to run a web design agency for about 20 years. And just a little bit of the dynamics, we follow EOS. So in our agency, Chris is the visionaries. He's going out there trying to understand what should we focus on, what's the future of where we need to be now. My job is the integrator. So I get all of his ideas and I put them into processes that our team can follow to make sure that we do this for our clients. The other thing that I do is I lead our AI task force. That is a group of professionals inside our company that is 100% focused on doing two things. Number one, and when we talk about AI and talk about AI today here, we're talking about AI in two things. We're talking about how do we use AI to become better, faster at what we do, but also how do we do all this stuff so you guys or we and our clients show up on AI searches, right? So we're looking at AI and both of those. So there's a lot more to come, but that's a little bit on me.
Yeah, and then I'm Chris. I'm a skier from Switzerland. So we're born on skis. It's actually mandatory to ski in Switzerland. I kid you not. And then I was lucky enough to pursue my passion, build an SEO company. And now we're actually an AI company that happens to do SEO, content marketing, generative engine optimization. The business cards, if you want to later on, you have to rush out about cards, any of this. So thank you so much. Who actually completed the survey? Cool. Thank you so much. Always gives us a little bit more information. So we took everything into consideration that the people who submitted the survey, including conversations that we had with Sarah, etc. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this session, but proof is in the pudding. You know, happy to hear at the end if this was actually valuable or not. So we'll talk about the system that we developed that automates all the stuff that you can do manually that we're going to show you. We have developed that system. Daniel will walk through the manual process and also what that system looks like. You want to say anything about that afterwards? Okay. Cool. All right. So every morning, we wake up and then we scroll through our feed, right? And my wife, because she watches, she looks up snow conditions, Aspen, snowman, steamboat, etc. And then she shows me AI generated crap. I'm like, April, this is AI generated? Or like, she's the perfect target audience for negative stuff about the ski season. I'm like, look, we booked our vacations. We're going to go to Snowmass. We're going to go to Steamboat, etc. But this is the reality, right? There's so many Aprils out there that have been impacted by what happened last season. And in fact, we did not renew our Icon Plus pass for the first time ever. We bought uphill skis because we're on a trip and the conditions were so bad. We're like, hey, we're not going to ski. We're going to do uphill skiing. So we got the Aspen, I think the 7-day flex pass. So for the first time in ever, we did not renew our pass. So actually your target audience, right, that this impacted our purchasing behavior. All right, let's talk about what AI systems are seeing and saying about your resort right now. So AI is actually really stupid still, yet it's the most powerful technology that ever existed. So AI is actually really stupid still, yet it's the most powerful technology that ever existed. Okay. Who's using ChatGPT in here? Who has made the switch from ChatGPT to Claude? Okay, that's what's happening. ChatGPT is losing a lot of clients. The information that they index or surface is relatively outdated. All of these systems, they have a different indexing, retrieving, serving system. So depending on what kind of system people use, they're going to see different information, right? At the end of the day, the large language models that will succeed are the ones that are most similar to Google. Google has figured it out. They have the best algorithm in the world. We trust Google, right? But that's the reality. A lot of people are using tools like ChatGPT, etc., that not necessarily surfaces the most up-to-date, accurate information. And then this is the reality, right? These tools, they're still stupid. They hallucinate. They will come up with things that don't really exist. Why? Because they feed on content that people are publishing out there. They don't double check. And also, yesterday when we worked on the slides and when we finalized the slides, I just did a search for Lublin ski resort closing date. The AI overview is different than what's in the blue link, right? This is a great opportunity for us to, oh, it's Lublin. Yeah, really is. All the ski resorts will hear about it as well. Yeah, so this is our job, right? We got to make sure that the right information is surfaced in the right platform to the right person. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. Just a quick word about Reddit. It is probably the most important platform that you need to be in control the narrative if you want to combat the negative stuff that's floating out there about your ski resort. Google teamed up with Reddit because it flew under the radar. A lot of people are on Reddit. They're actually creating normal content. And then Google started to index that content and serving it in its inclusion results pages because it was pure content. Now, of course, people try to game the system, but they're pretty good at weeding out crap content that's promotional. But that's the platform that is critically important. We're going to talk more about the big 6 social platforms that you need to be on if you want to control the narrative. YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Quora, Medium, Google Business Profile. And there's also other strategies that we recommend you deploy. All right. The reality is, there's a lot of zombie messaging out there. And Sarah, I think that's a term that you created. The reality is that, yeah, we had a terrible season. So a lot of people wrote things that were actually true, right? And probably my wife as well. And now we're heading into summer. So good news are emerging. And then the next ski season is not that far away. So now we're going to talk about the excitement that we're all going to feel when the next ski season is emerging. However, this is the reality, right? A lot of real content is sinking to the bottom like these dead fish. Believe me, they're going to be there for a very, very, very long time. And more content is flowing down to the bottom. What we need to focus on is what's there at the top, at the surface of the ocean, because that's probably the content, if up to date, that's most likely to be served by the large language models, Google, etc. All right, so let's talk about what to say and how to say it. There is no need to deny what happened last season, right? It is what it is. It was the worst winter I think, in history ever. So we don't want to lie about it or come up with a story that's not true. What people are asking right now, and so let me ask, I assume purchases of passes renewing are down. Does anybody have insights? Is that anybody involved? Yeah.
Got to be a little bit careful in a trade organization talking about sales and pricing.
Okay.
But Jesse's absolutely right. It's, the pain is felt.
Yeah. That's the reality, right? So now we're going to focus on, apparently next season, it's going to be an El Nino, incredible snow. You know, I probably wish I had an Icon Plus, But the reality is that there's a lot of Aprils out there that are asking them right now, is it worth getting a pass? So we need to talk to those people and convince them with as many facts as we have that, yes, it's going to be an incredible season. It's a good investment for you to purchase that pass now. Wait and then join us with day tickets, but they're going to be more expensive. And let me quickly ask, who has created a sophisticated communication strategy where you know exactly what your ICPs are, your ideal customer profile? You're in the right room. Perfect. Right.
Yeah, so the ideal customer profile is really, really important. And again, this is going back to a lot of times, the first step, marketing one-on-one, because it's really important that we know who we are talking to make sure that we're putting out the right messages, right? And not to go into too much detail, but the idea is we really want to understand who this person is, what is their pain point, and what is it that we're bringing to the table to help them overcome that pain point. That is going to help us make sure that we are putting out the right content that is going to be found by the right person. And when they actually land on that piece of content, those people will find that piece of content helpful and they will engage with that piece of content. So in a nutshell, that is it. Anytime before we start putting any pieces of content together, it's extremely important that we have very specific ICPs, one for April, for example, understanding what is April searching for, what is April afraid of, and how do we overcome that fear to make sure that she feels more comfortable engaging with our messaging and with our brand.
Yeah. And then, so Sarah has the slides. Please share them, right? Yep. Quick question.
When you say an ideal customer profile, you get different market segments.
Yep.
And each one's have different values. So how do you go about dealing with that all? Listening
Yeah.
of those different segments. And they probably vary in terms of time of season, whether you're air or destination.
So I agree, can be very complex. What I recommend, we came up with 4 ideal customer profiles, right? Try to keep it simple. Some people, they only have one person, doing communication. Other resorts, Aspen Snowmass, they really an entire team. So just do what you can do. Keep it simple. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That's what I recommend. We came up with 4 ICPs that, like, I don't work for ski resorts. I use my AI to come up with this.
On that note, some of our clients, for example, some of the big SaaS companies we work with have 20, 30 ICPs, different personas for different products at different mind stages. So it's important to create messages and communication for each one of those, right? That tie in together as part of the flow. But it depends on how complex you want your marketing strategy to be around, and you can build as many ICPs as needed.
Yeah. The more you know about your ICP, the better you can communicate with them. That's basically the point, right? The core diehard, don't waste your time on him. My friend DK, he's one of these people. They ski every month of the year. He had the best season ever because there was snow. So don't waste your time on them. But then I'm just going to talk about one of those ICPs, the weekend warrior, right? Just the knowledge. What happened? It's like, communicate with them in a way that makes sense to them, because you will find information online that specifically was posted by these people. The better you know, even if a very, very simple communication strategy on these are the 3, 4, 5 pain points that these people are dealing with, like you're gonna get something out of that when you start to respond to what's floating out there on the internet. Okay, so there's a lot of good news out there, right? We do recommend that based on the feedback that we received from the survey, that there doesn't seem to be a lot of overarching communication. It seems like you're working very individually. One thing that I would recommend is maybe increase communicating with each other, coordinate messaging. That's going to make this strategy way more powerful, right? If you can coordinate communication, we can swim in our lane. It's going to be easier to combat the negative stuff that's floating out there in a more sophisticated, efficient way.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a two-sided effort, right? I think each resort is trying to put out their own messaging, their own communication out there. But I think the whole Colorado industry as a whole is trying to also put out this message that the overall industry is healthy and things are looking amazing. So what we're trying to say is that it's important to collaborate to the point where, yes, each one of you have your own specific messaging about your resort and what you're doing and what the dates are and so forth. But the overall vision of where the Colorado industry is going to be and it's going to go, that is something that makes sense to collaborate on. Because when that communication is done as a group, the ability for that to move to the top and then get rid of a lot of that negative stuff that's out there is going to be much faster and much better than if every resort has their own agenda. Right. So that's the idea. One of the ideas that we're going to be trying to talk about as well is we put together kind of a semi-strategy to think about as we walk out of here today.
Is an idea on how to potentially do that for every client. We set up a virtual den. And some of our clients say they have multiple departments. Guess what? They don't even talk to each other. So we create a virtual client. In this case, you're looking at virtual Chris. We have multiple departments that I talk to on a regular basis. We take those transcripts, we create the project in Plot, and then we build a brain with all the communication that happens in these different departments. So the entire company can go to virtual Chris, and they have fully up-to-date information on what happened yesterday, in the AI department or with digital PR. This is something that is easily implementable. Streamline communication, things are way more consistent. Our customers love it. It's the core of our methodology. Daniel will talk more about that. And if there's interest there, I'd be happy to do a follow-up. Google Meets, if people have follow-up questions. Obviously, there's a lot of information in a short amount of time. But this is one way that we can use AI to get everything. So many good stories now. Brian Sarah told us snowmaking covers less than 12% of color ski terrain. I thought like the hose is open nonstop. We're polluting, we're using water, etc. I-70 is getting a major improvement, driving off to the mountains on the weekends. I no longer do it. So there's so much good news going on. A platform like that will make it very, very, very easy for you to just tap into this knowledge base and create content that's consistent and will resonate with your target audience. Okay. One thing that I noticed, I went through a bunch of complete business profiles of the resorts. In this case, do we have somebody here from Copper Mountain? Yeah. Please. Your Google business profile is a direct link to the search engine giant. I noticed there were a few negative reviews that have not been responded to. This is an amazing opportunity to talk directly to the search engine giant, to their AI, where you can use a system like that and address these negative reviews. This is where these ICPs are hanging out, identify who is it and give them a positive, don't lie to them, but you control the narrative. This is the kind of stuff that's going to get indexed by AI search. So this is really important. Everybody is guilty. So please, that's also an action item. Just go, answer every review, not just positive, but also the negatives. All right. The point is that now's the time, right? I congratulate you for being in this session. Time is of the essence. You've got to build content now that's going to counter the many posts that are negative. Now is the opportunity to turn that around. It sounds like next year is going to be an incredible ski season. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the improvements of I-70 and many other things that will get people excited to buy a pass. All right. Let's talk about how to do this stuff. Daniel, you want to talk about who knows what GEO is, generative engine optimization? So the old SEO changed when ChatGPT launched in November 30th, 2022. To me, it was immediately clear AI is going to change everything, right? We're not going to start these large language models to find information. 80% of SEO, GEO is still the same old boring stuff that everybody should do in this room if you're managing content, but the 20% that make 80% of the difference, that's GEO. That's what Daniel is going to talk about. But I tend to recommend you do a little bit of research on what GEO is, how GEO works, and you can take advantage of it. Simply not only to YouTube, there's a lot of information. There's also a lot of content on our websites, which we're going to share at the end of this presentation. All right. Something that I recommend anybody do right now, just do a search in Google, potentially incognito, for a search, closing date and then your ski resort or bad conditions. Just what people, are looking up or did look up last season. You will find, I guarantee you, on every page is user-generated piece of content. YouTube mentioned that YouTube is one of the big six. I did a little bit of research, did not find any kind of comments of any ski resort on any YouTube videos that showed the terrible snow conditions. What a great opportunity, right? Facebook, you can comment in Facebook. Reddit, who has a Reddit account in here? One. Okay. Excellent opportunity for all of us to set up a Reddit account, to join the conversation and talk to our ICPs and tell them how amazing next season is going to be. Who is anybody using social listening tools? Is anybody paying for what are you using?
We're using Tracker and Hashbook.
Okay, perfect. A simple tool will do. It's way easier to just set it up and then get those notifications, and then maybe twice a week you respond to it. Use your AI, right, to be consistent with your messaging. Google notifications. This is very easy, very effective. We're now doing this for our clients, right? Because people are talking about products and services. We join the conversation. You don't even need to put a link in there or anything. Just join your conversation so that you control the narrative.
Let me make a comment on that real quick as well. So a big part of what we used to do as an audit was the traditional SEO audit, technical, is it optimized for this? One of the things that we're really focusing on is what we call an AI audit now. So one thing that's not in the presentation, but I would recommend you guys to write down, is there's a website called Is My Website Agent Ready? And put it in there. And what that does is says if your website is set up for agent to agent communication. If you've seen the commercials for Alexa now, Alexa's like, hey, Alexa, what's a great, what's the opening date for Eldora Mountain? That agent is going to try to interact with the website. And if the websites are set up to talk to agents, they're going to prioritize those websites. So that's a big one of this initial audit that you need to do. And then some of the basics like schema. Schema, markup language, is something that was good to have. Now with AI agents use schema tremendously. So that's another really, really important part of an initial AI audit that you guys should, as baseline, make sure that the websites are set up for, because that allows AI agents to pick up the real information from the real source of information instead of trying to find all of this user-generated content, figure out what's real and what's not real.
So Google is in the process of rolling out a tool called Google Spark. It's an agent that is going to be very user-friendly, where you can just tell it, hey, I'm gonna go and ski in Steamboat for 3 days. Find me a hotel at this price, make reservations for this and that, and buy me tickets at the lowest price. This is what's happening right now. Right now, most of us still use searches. I guarantee you, in next 18 to 24 months, most of us will use agents to do search on our behalf. If your website and content is not ready for agent to agent communication, you will miss out. That is so critically important. So this is make a mental note.
And this is the beginning of next season, by the way. So, but when next season starts, this is going to be happening. That's why now it's the time to make sure that these websites are set up to do agent to agent communication.
Yeah. An easy way to do is just have a fact sheet on your website. That's probably marked up with schema. It's a markup language where we go back to on a regular basis, update it to search engines. The website is still the most important entity that they're going to go to first. And then they're going to look for other places to find information. That's an excellent way for you to control the narrative. Even have like positive facts at the bottom, mark them out with FAQ schema. This is an easy way for you to control the narrative. All right, back to the big six. Something you can do right away, right? You're going to be on YouTube. It's the most cited resource in AI overviews in AI mode. LinkedIn was purchased by Microsoft, major investor in OpenAI. Most of our leads now come from ChatGPT, because I live on LinkedIn. Shocking, at least 50% of everybody that reaches out to us from ChatGPT, because we live on LinkedIn, right? Reddit, join the conversation. Quora, very similar, like Reddit. Medium, you control the narrative. You can post information just like that. Google Business Profile, it's a Google product. You have a direct link to the search engine giant. Be very active on Google Business Profile. Put information on there of what's happening. Google will immediately index it and surface it in AI search and traditional search. And then who's doing digital PR? Who's using a platform such as PR Law? Who's putting out press releases on a regular basis? Perfect. You got to do that. There's a platform called PR Log. We do this for every client. I speak a lot, so we do a press release for every speaking engagement. When we do case studies, we do a press release. We're able to push that content out to publication platforms that hook it up. Guess what? Gets indexed by the search engines and in large language models. This is an easy way for you to control the narrative. Do you want to add anything about digital PR?
No, I mean, digital PR, again, if you look at what a strategy for content creation and coming up on organic was link building, right? Link building was an old strategy that SEO build companies used to use. Link building is still very important, but the old way that links were built, bad. What this allows you to do is create amazing links coming into your content and create a lot of what we call EEAT, which is, I'll talk about that a little bit more, but one of the things that Google really takes in consideration when serving content and AIs as well is the EEAT score of the company and the people that are putting out content. EEAT stands for expertise, experience, trustworthiness, and authoritativeness. And press releases really help build that EEAT score for the brand.
The best asset in terms of controlling the narrative is probably the CEO of the head of your ski resort, because Google trusts that person. It knows who that person is. Also, the other large language models. So whatever content is associated with that person will do better than any content that, probably somebody will create. So what we recommend, and this is what Daniel is going to talk about, create the most authoritative piece of content that covers everything for our clients. And then we use our system to slice and dice it into these big six platforms, do press releases. It's way easier to do that than to go and find all the negative content that AI may have created, that other may have people created. This is an easy way to be proactive. You're in control. And obviously depends how much time, resources, and money you have to deal with this problem. But we're going to show what we do for our clients. It's absolutely doable. So Daniel, I'll let you take it over.
Perfect. So one of the big conversations that we have with all of our clients all the time is the majority of them are still using AI the wrong way, right? What they're doing is they're just going to an out of the box Claude or ChatGPT and saying, hey, please create a blog post or an email or do this or do that. And what happens is that creates a piece of content that is considered AI slop, right? And AI slop is highly penalized by Google AI agents, because that's the last thing they want is to have their servers having to process more and more AI slop. So anytime that you're using ChatGPT or any AI agent in that way, you're actually hurting yourself tremendously. So that's one thing that I'm going to go over today is how to use AI correctly. So what we've created, and Chris, about what was it that you created the Micro SEO strategy about a year and a half ago? 2 years?
Probably 2 years ago.
2 years ago. And I see it as Doc Brown from Back to the Future when he banged his head and he's like, oh my God, I know how to do this now. And he put together a methodology that we mapped out. And for about a year and a half, this is what it looks like. And don't get overwhelmed because I'm going to walk you through the different steps. Now, there's two things that I'm going to talk about. Number one, when we first started doing this process, it would take us about a month and a half to put out a piece of content. Why? Because you'll see there was a lot of research, there was a lot of different people involved, there was a lot of different steps. Using AI, we are able to do two things. Number one, automate a lot of these steps so it becomes much faster, but also AI allows us to do this with a lot more depth and a lot more intelligence. So the actual outcome becomes much, much better. So when we talk about AI, we use AI in two different camps. Number one, using AI to optimize this process. So now we're able to create an amazing piece of content and go through all of this in about a day to 2 days. We have this whole process completed. But the second part is this is built to create content that is going to rank high on Google, but it's also going to rank high on GEO, on AI searches, which you ask ChatGPT. And essentially, that's what our clients pay us nowadays, right? Clients come to us because they say 9 out of 10 times, we found you on AI. That's what we want. It's like, how do we come up when somebody's looking for what we do on AI? And this applies to when you create that piece of content there, you create the narrative and how you promote this narrative to make sure that that's the narrative that is being showcased on AI searches and Google searches. So this is the system that we've essentially built to automate this, and we are able to do this at scale. But what I wanted to do today is actually go through step by step on what we're doing here, because when you guys are going through the process of saying, all right, we need to create a message, we need to put that message out there, and we need to make sure that this is essentially what's coming up when people are interacting, this is the formula that works, right? So first and most important is making sure that you have a custom agent. Again, if you are still using that out of the box GPT or Claude without a knowledge base, that's the first thing that you need to change. Anytime that, let's say that, we start working with a new resort called Resort ABC, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a custom Claude for them. We're going to get a knowledge base. We're going to put as much information in there about what is this company all about? What is their values? What do they stand for? Case studies. What do they do? What do they don't like to do? How do they talk? What are their user personas, the ICPs? Why? Because anything that gets created from this point forward using AI is going to be really with the lenses of how the company speaks and how the company acts. That is the most important thing. And this is not a one-time fee as well, one-time setup. It is something that when we build, we go into the organization and we say, ongoing, can you record your meeting transcripts and feed it in here? Can you record webinars? Anything that's happening within the company, outside, inside, you want to keep feeding it in there because this is an AI agent that becomes smarter and smarter over time, right? This is the engine that makes everything run. So let's say that we're going to create a new piece of content, and let's say that the keyword's going to be, should I buy an icon pass next year, right? So the first thing is we need to put in as much research and strategy into our process. So the first thing that you see, that first box on the top there, is going to be the strategy documents. Like, why are we creating this content? What are we trying to achieve? Or is there a call to action? Is there a conversion? So forth. And then the two yellow ones is where we need to leverage the EEAT. Like I mentioned, Google and AI agents want to surface to the top information that is put by people and companies that are true experts, authoritative,
thought leaders in the industry. So a lot of what we need to showcase on that piece of content is why should we, why should Google listen to this piece of content? Then the second one, and this is one that used to take us a lot of manual work before it got automated, is we'll get that keyword that we're trying to optimize for. Is it worth buying an icon pass? And we're going to go do a SERP analysis. So we put in that that keyword in Google, and we see what are the top 10 websites that show up today. We get all of those websites and all of that information because that's who Google deems the most important results today. We do the same for ChatGPT, for AI Overview, for Gemini, for Perplexity. Why? Because that's who they deem the most important information today. We want to incorporate that into the research because when we create a piece of content, our piece of content needs to be more encompassing, more in depth, and better than anything that's out there today. And then the last piece of content, right? That source content. That is probably the most important part of this whole thing because Google has really been very specific about they don't want to see any more generic pieces of information out there. They don't want to see a how-to guide, how to plan a trip, how to get over the traffic in the I-70. They want specific informations on how we guide or how you guide. So this has to be based on this topic that we're going to be writing about. Like, is it worth buying an icon pass? This cannot be another generic piece. You should do this. You should do that. You should say, based on our experience at our resort, these are the things that you should take in consideration. And here's this that we did, and this is how we did that and did this. These pieces that are very focused on the approach of the specific person or the company that's writing this piece of content, or pieces of content that are going to surface to the top, much more than just generic pieces of content. That's why we feed a lot of this source content in there, but that's why we also use that digital client to process and write that content, because as it's going through and using all of that research information and saying, okay, now let's create a piece of content that's either going to be a blog or press release or whatever it is that we're going to be using. That piece of content is going to be a unique EEAT focused piece of content, focusing on the approach of this company on how we can do a piece of content that's better than anything out there. Now, we've created a piece of content. Let's say we're going to launch this as a blog post. We put that a blog post on a website. This is what Google, again, based on what we know that Google's looking for, considers a really good net new source, authoritative piece of content. It's sitting there. Now that's half of the data, right? What do we need to do with that content? Well, we need to go out there and we need to get as much traction as possible from this piece of content. Now, because we have that amazing piece of content, what we do is we now ask Digital Client here to slice and dice that piece of content into all of the different places that we know we need to promote and talk about this content. So the first one, the 6 that you see there are the big 6. These are the ones that we know as a fact that you need to be active on. Now, what better way to be active than to be promoting that amazing piece of content that you've created? So LinkedIn, Google Business Profile, YouTube, Quora, Medium, Reddit. A lot of our clients have people that are doing YouTube videos. That's really important. Some of our clients are like, nah, we're not doing YouTube videos. We don't have anybody. And we're starting to now use AI technology to generate AI videos that are going to be talking about that specific content from the blog post, working tremendously well. And then doing the other stuff that's outside the big 6, which are other social media platforms, Facebook, X, Instagram. When you look at LinkedIn, one of the things that we focus on tremendously as well is LinkedIn is the most important platform as far as I'm concerned. And it's not just the LinkedIn profile for the business. It's the leadership, personal profiles. It's other people's The more people in the company that we can get to promote content from the website and messages on the website, the stronger that overall messaging becomes, right? And then the last but not least, if you just post stuff on there and people try to connect with you and try to ask questions and you don't respond and you don't engage, that's a dead end street and that really hurts you. So the last part of this whole thing is the engagement piece, right? So this is essentially the entire thing that we call the overall engine that will allow you to, number one, create content that is going to rank really, really well, and making sure that you're positioning this content in a wide landscape of platforms to make sure that when somebody asks
a social media platform asks an AI agent or asks Google, there's a great chance that this is the content that is being surfaced to the top. So in a nutshell, that's the workflow that we use internally that we've now automated, but that we know works tremendously well.
Yeah, can I ask you a quick?
Of course.
Because when you talked about how we shouldn't be posting generic content like be pack for ski trip, how does ski country support the work of the resorts without duplicating their work? But I think that that's useful information. Like maybe mom from Texas doesn't know what to pack for a ski trip. Like what kind of work can we do to support the specific information that the resorts are talking about their own property?
Perfect. So what we talked about primarily in this presentation are the target groups that are pissed off because of the terrible ski season, right? But of course, there are more ICPs, like the family in Texas that, they're going to spend a lot of money on an amazing vacation. So for those people, absolutely, you got to create useful information. It's like the ultimate guide to planning your incredible, ski vacation in Steamboat or whatever resort, right? Absolutely. So it goes back to your ICPs. Who are these people and what kind of content will resonate with them? And I guarantee you, if you create the ultimate piece of information that's useful to people like that, it will show up in, regular search, AI search, etc. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah, I think the challenge that this group has is they're all tasked with talking about their resorts and all of the amazing events and activities, skiing and everything that makes their resorts unique. Our task is not stepping on their toes.
Yeah.
So trying to figure out how we're all working together in alignment, but in our own lanes.
What I would do is if somebody can control the overall communication strategy, that's the best case scenario, right? You could do research on what are the 10, 15 most, common topics that came up by ICP, right? Somebody will have to do that research and then come up with, how are we going to communicate with these people on which platforms, and then coordinate with the individual resorts. Are they able to help you with this communication? Put out a plan, create content that they have access to. Can you force them? No, right? But if you have a plan that's going to make it as easy as possible for people to pick content that resonates with the individual resorts, I think they're more likely to do that. And believe me, it's a lot of work, but it's absolutely doable, especially if you set up that virtual you with all the information. Maybe people are willing to share, information from their resort that you can feed into your virtual you. That's how I would approach it. Yeah, definitely. I know people have limited amount of time, right? So you gotta pick your battle. What I would do is like run an audit on a regular basis, do those searches, see what kind of communication is out there. Obviously, do your ICP exercise, do your exercise on how to communicate with them, maybe coordinate with Sarah. That's something that you guys are willing to do. Then this is what we just talked about, right? The more you guys can work together in terms of controlling the narrative, the overarching information that you want to put out there, the more successful this will be. Not only will you be able to combat the AI generated stuff that's out there, the negative information that's out there, but also talk to people that are excited to come to Colorado. Their main purpose is to plan an amazing vacation, right? So for me, it also goes back to somebody needs to be in charge. And obviously, there needs to be buy-in. But the closer you coordinate this communication effort, the more successful it will be. guarantee you that. It's as simple as that. So yeah, 3 things that you can do like right away, right? Run your audit, fix one thing, give it a try, like set up a Reddit account, go on YouTube, set up an AI, like a project in Claude, use some skills to be more effective. There's a lot of information out there. Um, Anything is better than nothing. And as we saw at the beginning, the standing up exercise, I think there's room for to do more with the help of AI. Anything is better than nothing, right? And then set up monitoring alerts, Google alerts, like a social media monitoring website. It's not that expensive. Just make it as easy as possible for you to get the information that people put out there online. So I put out a weekly AI SEO tip. It's usually like 6 to 10 minutes. If you scan that QR code, that'll take you to that LinkedIn newsletter. I try to really publish great educational content on LinkedIn. Guess why? It gets indexed by ChatGPT, and it thinks I'm the ultimate AI SEO expert. But I try to publish really high quality content, including my team. Then set up those alerts, use some monitoring tools. The easiest thing that you can do right away, head over to prlaw.org. You can put out press releases with whatever content you want. Put out content that's super exciting about, next season, about traffic's going to get better on Saturday. Just like brainstorm with your team or your AI. We put out for our clients, I think, weekly press releases. It works. It's like the oldest trick in the SEO game. It still works. Why not take advantage of something that's super easy to do and you control the narrative? Over. That was it.
I have one comment to make. So I was thinking about your question, Sarah. So I think an important thing to keep in mind is that I feel that what you should do is set the North Star to where the industry wants to go to. What's the main message that it wants to communicate? And that's going to be done by all of the different companies and all of the different resorts talking about that same message. Each resort's going to have kind of a dual set of communications, right? The North Star, where are we going as an industry, but they also their personal things. So, one resort's going to have a packing list that's going to be different than, what to take for another resort, depending on the other activities and the nightlife and this and so forth. But I think that if, Sarah, you're able to provide a North Star and overall, this is where as an industry, we feel that we're going and we feel that the communication should be, this is something that can be implemented into everyone's communication. That's what we mean that if everyone works together and talks about the same things, this message will move to the top faster and then replace a lot of what's out there today. And I think that's where you can come in with some guidance, some North Star, and allowing everyone to kind of bring that communication into their specific, strategy.
And also there's probably maybe 100 posts, right? But at the most traffic cited about certain things, how terrible the snow was, right? Why not just bury that post with your content? Just coordinate, go to that post and, 20, 30 resorts post relevant content in response to that post. You'll be able to address that situation.
Yeah. And then when you do something similar to the framework that we presented, you go through this creation of one piece of content and you're creating 8, 9 different pieces of content. So you're really putting a lot less effort and creating a lot more quality stuff. And that's the idea. The idea is you're putting out there so much stuff, and because there's so many different resorts that are rowing in the same direction, that combined all of the efforts from all of the resorts is going to really push out a lot of this negative stuff that's out there today. Then if everyone's doing something different and kind of moving in kind of a different direction. So that's the overall is like individually, you guys can become really powerful, but being powerful individually as a group really will allow you to get to a place much faster.
Yeah. Again, Sarah, I'd be happy to do a follow-up session. I'll be gone for a few weeks and here tomorrow. So let me know. I hope this was useful. I know a lot of information in a short amount of time. We can talk about this forever. Even if you walk away with like 2-3 golden nuggets, that's what I try to do when I attend sessions like this, because it can make a difference. Yeah. Again, as a business card, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. Yeah, question.
Do you guys have any, suggestions and, for an AI use policy for employees at work? This is one that is weighing.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that this is all going to be great.
Good question. And we're still trying to figure it out ourselves. I talked about it 2 years ago. We don't have one. What I would do is just go to your favorite AI tool, describe in great detail, be as specific as possible, and see what it comes up with. Actually, Google Gemini is pretty good at that kind of content. So I would start there. A lot of companies are now putting AI policies in place. So just say, ask, hey, what are the top, companies in this space are doing in terms of AI policy? I had not figured it out yet.
What is the value of a website in 2, 3, 5 years for ski resort? Does it become the main, what it is now, it's kind of the main knowledge source, but with all the AI overview stuff, are you still trying to drive people to the website to then get them to put the head in the bed or the bottom of the seat?
So that was actually just a topic on Search of the Record, which is Google's official place where they talk to people like us. That was exactly the topic. And there, the census is that the website will continue to be the most important thing where you communicate information to the outside world. Traffic is going down with AI overviews. Google is going to keep more and more traffic on their website. However, you control the content and the narrative on your website. If you mark it up as any other form, right, with a schema markup, it's going to be the best source of information that these platforms will go to. So are you going to get more traffic over time? No, probably less. But the information on your website is the most important place to have your information on. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
We have a few more minutes for the questions. The break is a 15-minute break. So I want to encourage folks to ask questions either now, but you guys are going to join us for the rest of the rest of the afternoon. Is that right?
I'm leaving tomorrow morning.
You have to go to Europe.
And
Yeah, I'll be around. If anybody can, yeah.
That's really helpful.
Oh,
Questions.
One more question. Question I have is, we're fighting a tough snow year. Poison max season masses the next year, COVID bookings. What about something like a 5-year average, but pressing it head on? And what tends to follow after such a tough, challenging year? How much more snow do you get in the forecast as a strategy to address what is the most their recent memory, getting past that and what to expect of the positive?
so when I grew up in Switzerland, there's a lot of cows, and those cows are caged in by these electric fences. As a kid, there's always a challenge, like to touch the electric fence. I did it. I got zapped, and I didn't do it again. Right? A lot of people got zapped, and that's what's in their memory right now. But that's a great story that you need to tell with the help of a system that we just showed. Right? I didn't even think about that. That's the kind of information that you need to put out there through as many channels as possible.
Seems like that would be a synergy with state association. Talking about those rebound answers. And those are ideas that would be coming also from the association. By the way, that whole framework that I showed you is to create one piece of content. That piece of content is based on the content calendar. Like, what are we going to talk about? And if we were having a strategy session, I'd say that piece of content that you recommended, brilliant.
right? Because that's a great piece of content that looks at a positive, realistic outlook on what we need to be focusing on instead of the electric fence.
Right. I'm spending hours the past 5 years. What those things to spawn natural snaps. However, really killed that narrative.
Yes.
Forward thinking based on historical stats.
Yes. And then your resort can talk about that based on your snowmaking powers and abilities, where another resort can have the same story conversation with their approach and what they're doing, where they're doing it. But the overall, that's exactly the point.
Yes.
So there's a ton of people at the sideline right now. They're undecided. You need to give them reasons to buy passes with all the arguments that you have, right? That's it. Because otherwise people will sit it out. And I know a bunch of people that will sit out next season because they got stung by the electric fence.
You never had 2 shitty years in a row. Yes.
Well, convince people sideline with the right arm.
Yeah. But that's a perfect example of something that if we're all talking about that in our own perspective experiences, that whole messaging is going to have a much better chat.
So there's some people that are really good dominate the press in politics. I'm not going to name names, but that's what they do. They just fill out the media like a message. They're good at that, right? Is it necessarily true? No. Obviously, we want to, not lie, but we can do this. You can, if we work together, we can flood the zone with the right messaging. You'll show up in the right places. Yeah.